Hi everyone, and welcome to How Good's Footy in Asia, AFL Asia's official podcast. I'm your co-host Matty Gale, based in Osaka, Japan. Joining me is Billy Bang Bang Krang over in Vietnam. We'll get to you shortly, Bill. But haven't we got a tremendous guest in front of us today? And we've got the big fish in the pool here, ladies and gentlemen of AFL royalty. One, Brad Johnson is the 1993 AFL first-round selection for the Western Bulldogs, or Footscray at the time, and 11th pick overall. 365 games, ladies and gentlemen, 558 goals in a career that spans 17 years and 3 decades, mind you. And he's only 40-odd now, which is magnificent. 3-time Charles Sutton medalist for the best and fairest there at the Doggies. And the Doggies leading Goalkicker on 5 occasions, and All-Australian 6 occasions, and captain in 2006 when he wasn't even the captain of the Bulldogs. I think he was the active captain at the time, the acting captain, and the Bulldogs captain, obviously, for 4 years. Western Bulldogs Team of the Century member, on the pine, mind you. But it's magnificent to welcome Brad Johnson from Zena Sports, AFL legend, Foxtel star, you name it, he's done it. The Smiling Assassin, welcome to our AFL Asia Podcast, episode 18. Thanks for joining us.
It's great to be here, Matty and Billy. It really is. It's exciting to be able to talk to you and talk a bit of footy and where it's at, and hopefully in 2021 we can see some live action again, which would be nice.
Yeah, it'll be magnificent to see you guys not in and out of hubs and probably commentating back at the ground again. I guess we sort of took that for granted a long time, and being able to travel in Asia for footy, it's thrown a real spanner in the works, but we're making do with what we've got. We'll just go around the grounds. Billy, you're based not in your hometown or based in Heights, Saigon today. Where are you? What's the weather like?
This is the hometown, I guess, technically. So I'm staying with the in-laws for the Tet or the Lunar New Year week. Typically, this time last year we were visiting you in Osaka, Matty. So we normally try and use this is a Christmas holiday to us, pretty much. We normally try and get off somewhere, get to the snow, get to a beach. This year, it's not the worst thing. We're doing the family thing. We've got a new nephew in the family, taking my niece down the beach for some surfing lessons. So it's interesting. Being stuck somewhere sometimes it's not that bad. Just being able to lay low and not have to get through airports or any of that. So yeah, I'm in the coffee shop down the road. The house is a bit noisy. Too many people this time of year, and it's raining, which is very unseasonal. Just started on my way here.
Well, you got a bit of sweat on the old top lip there, mate. So you're obviously doing a bit warmer than my 10 degrees today.
Yeah, they didn't really want to turn the air conditioning on in this room. I asked them specifically, and it's all pretty quiet around here at the moment. So they were like, "Oh, no, too hard."
Sounds like they're running on Tight Ass Tuesday, even though it's a Wednesday.
Nah, it's Tet. Everything's closed.
All right, Bill, I'm going to give you the new rock. You can open up the innings with the new ball. Fire away, old son.
Okay, how good. So, Brad, I just wanted to go way back, and tell us about your early days, a bit of your upbringing, but also the junior footy, and I guess any other sports that were kind of vying for your attention in those early days.
Look, I grew up in Hoppers Crossing, the west of Melbourne, so it wasn't too far from Footscray. I ended up going to high school in Geelong, where I live at the moment, and so I sort of travelled between Hoppers Crossing and Geelong and the city to play a lot of my sport as a youngster. Little athletics was my number one. I'm a huge athletics fan. I love it. It's something that I enjoyed as a kid, and I certainly enjoy it today as well. I love the Olympic Games, everything that goes with that. It's just one of those sports that was great. I ended up sort of flowing towards Daley Thompson in the decathlon. I think that was my major hero as a kid. I loved the different sports, the different elements of athletics, rather than just being stuck on one thing. So although I wasn't that big, I wasn't that good at the discus or shot put or anything like that. It was more sort of the running and jumping events that I really liked. And I played a lot of basketball as a junior as well, but was never really any good or quick enough in athletics to be anything special. And then I always loved footy, but I wasn't allowed to play until I was 13 years of age. And my first year of footy, I had to wear a helmet. And you can imagine back in about 1990 or 1989 what the helmets looked like back then.
Yeah.
They weren't great. So I got through my first year of footy at Hoppers. Only played 3 years of footy at Hoppers Crossing under 13s, 14s and 15s. And then when I played an under 15s carnival, and I played as a combined carnival and played really poorly. And the coach afterwards basically said to me, look, might be go back to athletics. Like, I know you want to be an AFL player, but I don't think you're going to make it. Because I was really tiny and I was really soft and played on the outside and didn't like the hard ball too much. So from there I had to make a decision. So I ended up going and trying out for Williamstown in the under 19s as a 15-year-old. And the VFA back then was pretty tough and rough, and just thought it'd be a good way to learn to protect myself and maybe get a little bit tougher around the ball and those sort of things. So I took it on myself to go and try out, and I don't think they knew I was 15 at the time, and I made the list, I made the team, and then so played under 19s as a 15-year-old, turned 16, played 4 reserves games as well that year, and remember kicking 1 goal 7 in my first reserves game at VFA level, which would have been nice if it was 7 goals 1, but anyway, that's the nature of it. And then from there, I went back after that year of footy where I learned a fair bit about myself and the game and being involved with some older guys, which was really important for my development. Went back and played in the under-18 competition over here and played for the Western Jets. And going back then and playing against kids my own age again, I was just super confident, knew that I'd be able to handle that situation and handle those games. And then I was at the end of that year as a 17-year-old. So at 15, I was in a bit of limbo. At 17, I was drafted to the Bulldogs. So it all happened really quickly, and that was purely around development for me. We see it a lot these days. A lot of young guys will come through and they might be good at 13, 14 and not make it at 18 or 19. And you see the opposite where some are just sort of bubbling along, athletically good, love the game, and then all of a sudden, as they develop as a young man, they can get going and be drafted as a 17 or 18-year-old. So it's so that was sort of part of my junior journey, and I'm sort of glad that I took those steps and took that upon myself to do it rather than letting other people tell me what direction to take.
So do you think if you had have not gone and sort of put yourself out there against the bigger boys, do you feel like you would have made those steps anyway and been able to come through the TAC Cup or whatever it was called in time? Or do you think that was actually what stepped you up that level?
No, it definitely stepped me up. I think playing against kids my own age, which was fine, and look, I was progressing okay, and athletically I could get around the ground, and I love playing half forward and playing on the wing and all those sort of things. But playing against guys that were they're grown men, it made me sort of learn how to protect myself more in the contest, and the good thing about it, they taught me the right way to play at senior level. So I knew where I wanted to sort of get to and had a real drive and determination to do that and try and achieve what I wanted to in playing AFL footy. But I just had to learn so much around that, because knowing that if I stepped into a senior environment, it happened to be at the Bulldogs, but it could have been at any level, at least I would have been able to look after myself on the field and certainly perform at a reasonable level and consistently perform as well, and not sort of be a bit shy on the contest, which is what I was as a junior.
Yeah, and I mean that became one of your hallmarks, being able to play a bit oversized and handle some of those bigger, badder defenders. How was the draft experience? Matty mentioned you went 11 in the 93 draft, was it?
Yeah, it was.
Who else went in that draft above and below you, and how was that experience for a kid?
The draft was cool. Like, I got invited along to the draft. Looking back, I wore the worst shirt of all time. It was a shocker. Seriously. I remember getting interviewed by Sandy Roberts at the time, so that was pretty cool. And look, the lead up to the draft is a really interesting sort of process, because my year was going along pretty well. I think I had about probably 14 clubs talk to me along the way. I thought the Adelaide Crows were the ones that I thought at the time showed the most interest. They sat at my house a few times, sort of said, come to Adelaide, you can get your license as a 17-year-old, we'll give you a car and off you go and all that sort of stuff. And So that was pretty cool. Geelong showed a little bit of interest as well. The only conversation I had with the Bulldogs in the lead up to the draft was the night before, and Mark Kleiman, who was the head of recruiting at the time, gave me a call and basically said, if we draft you tomorrow, do you want to come to the Bulldogs? I said, of course I do. He goes, no worries, see you later. And that was the only conversation I had with the club in the lead up to the draft. And then the next day was called out at 11, which was great to get an early look in, considering how nervous you are, sitting there amongst, some of the peers. And I think Darren Gasper went number one that year in 93. Chris Johnson was a gun junior player at that time. Yep. We know what career he had at Fitzroy, then the Brisbane Lions. Who else was sort of around at that time? Fraser Gehrig, I remember being in that. I was around that draft period of Adam Simpson, Shannon Grant, some of those types of players that went on to have really successful sort of playing careers, especially Adam Simpson and what he's doing today as a coach. Daniel Harford was another one that was around that mark. I'm not sure the same year. Matty Lloyd was the year after, but we played state footy together as well, and Teal Cup it was back in the day. So there was some big names that sort of had reasonable careers coming out of that draft.
Yeah, Huff was definitely in that draft pool, and so was one of the Scott brothers as well.
Yeah, they were. I played Teal Cup with Chris Scott. Brad didn't play Teal Cup, but Chris did. So they were as big as what you see them on the field. They were that big at 17 years of age. They were just built like a brick.
One more question on the early days. Who did you actually go for as a kid growing up in the VFL at the time?
Yeah, I went for the Bulldogs. So I was really only living down the road. So I was really lucky with that. I didn't mind Geelong because I spent a bit of time in Geelong. You sort of love to watch them, and when they're coming through. 89, what a grand final, and all those sort of things. Love my footy, but just overall, it was more the Bulldogs. Doug Hawkins was a huge, one of those players I love. But Chris Grant was my favourite. So he was kicking 50 goals with the Bulldogs as a 17-year-old, and I was about 14 at the time. So I just absolutely loved this guy. What a star! And then to play so much footy with an absolute legend of a bloke and legend of a player was a highlight for me. I got nervous even when I was finishing up and he was finishing up his career. Walking through the doors and standing next to Grant, he's pretty intimidating in the right way, but he just makes the hair stand up on the back of your neck just because he was an absolute gun. Like some of the things he would do that we would witness, even just the training. I get the goose now thinking about him because he was just unbelievable. He was nicknamed the Rolls Royce for a reason, and that's exactly what he was.
Johno, we'll go through those early years at Footscray at the time because the Bulldogs got rebranded, I think, in the third year of your career there or fourth year at the Doggies. Now, when you got into the club rooms, let's put it this way, they were in a bit of a crisis period. The Year of the Dog documentary came about as a result of it. But it didn't take long to get back on the track, and you had some success in the coming years with the 97-98 prelims. We'll just go through those early years first, and you can just read us into how the environment and the club culture completely changed with the rebranding as well.
Yeah, look, it was great to walk in, to be honest with you. It really was. And the older guys wouldn't talk to you back then, so I'm 17. The older ones wouldn't, because there was so, like back then I was drafted, but they'd have a train-on list of about another 20 guys, trying to find a spot. So there'd be sometimes 50, 60 guys running around on the track trying to, secure a spot on a list. And look, I was lucky to have that and be drafted in that situation. So some of the guys wouldn't sort of get to know you until you actually that final cutoff and the list was set, and then they knew, okay, this is who we're playing with this year. Let's get going. But some of the, like Doug Hawkins walked me into the rooms the first time, met me at the door, which was a huge thing at the time. So that was pretty cool. But then you sort of go in there, and my first number was 33 at the Bulldogs. So Brian Royal, who was a star of the club, played a lot of footy. So he was. I got that honour in my first year to wear his jumper, and look, it's just all intimidating. It really is. You're trying to act all cool and walk around like you're not, respect the environment, not get too far in front of yourself, but you're trying to feel like you belong, but you really don't. And it's not until you get out on the track that you can start to really build into showing the senior guys what you're about and your type of work rate and effort and all those things that underpin, you as a person and a player, you want them to stand out more than anything. So I sort of had that in some ways and was able to gain the respect of the players reasonably quickly, which was good. And then once you've got that, they go out of their way. Like Steve Wallace used to spend probably 4 to 6 hours a week with me one-on-one post-training, just working on my kicking. So they start to go out of their way, the senior guys, once you sort of, show them that, you're really there and you're committed to try and establish. And look, we battled. Like 94, 95, we played finals, which was pretty cool as a young player. And 96, we battled. We really struggled as a club. You mentioned they had Year of the Dog, so we had a full year of filming, and we win 1 or 2 games for the year. I think we beat Fitzroy only in 96, but how quickly it can change, because Terry Wallace took over at the end of 96. We rebrand. We're still the Footscray Football Club, but we rebrand to the Western Bulldogs to sort of try and capture the whole western suburbs of Melbourne. And it sort of had a positive effect in some ways. They started to work on the change rooms and start to do some stuff in there to make it more comfortable for us as a footy club. And Terry Wallace got us training in October of 1996. And it was the first time ever that a team had started so early. So we started in October. By February, we were unbelievably fit. We went out and played our first practice game against North Melbourne, I think, who started in January, and they beat us by about 5 or 6 goals, and they're like laughing, going, "You boys have been training for 3 months and you still can't beat us." But after that, we lost round 1 of that year in 97. We won round 2 by a couple of points, and then we're away. It sort of just established some confidence. We went to Perth in round 6 and beat West Coast. We had a bit of a motto in 97 that, we play hard, but we enjoy our wins, and we made sure we did that. And we went on and made a prelim final in 97, coming from the 15th year before to being 20 points up at three-quarter time against Adelaide and losing by a couple of points. So, that was it was heartbreaking, but as a young player, you still think it's going to keep rolling along. We're in a pretty good spot. 98 was the same. We had an unbelievable year. Played Adelaide in a prelim. Think we'd get some retribution, and we get absolutely smacked that day. Andrew McLeod was unbelievable. Those 2 years were a great experience to finally establish ourselves as a footy club in a tough competition, and play some good finals footy, yet not being able to make that final step.
Just in your own career, you took a big leap forward in 1999, the year after, career high stats per season, your first All-Australian and your first best and fairest. So how did you go about it, and how did you take that next level up in your career?
Yeah, Terry Wallace grabbed me at the end of 98. I was just playing on the wing, up and down the wing, and basically said that he wanted me to become a forward and play sort of half forward and then pinch it in the middle of the ground so I can still get some run up and down the ground, which I like to do, and then play pretty much out of the goal square, half forward, play 40 metres out. I could sort of start to roll where I liked. And footy back then was one-on-one footy, so it was you sort of could judge who was going to come to you and the type of opponent and work from that. But the 98 into 99 season, that pre-season, I spent every session with Brian Taylor. So Terry Wallace got Brian Taylor down. He basically taught me all aspects of forward craft in not only my goal kicking routine, and start to develop on that, but where to position myself, where to run, the ball's coming down one side of the ground, what are you doing? And he challenged me the whole time, and he'd basically be standing on the ground next to me and working with me. So that was huge for myself to have big Brian Taylor, who was an unbelievable forward in himself, just talking to me around, if I'm playing full forward, this is what you got to do, this is how you want to position your opponent. And I just thrived on that sort of education. I loved it. He was a good man to have around as well, which made it entertaining. But outside of that, what he was able to teach me was something that I just kept for then my entire career, and probably still use a little bit of it today, although the game's played a bit differently in teaching some of the various forwards at the different levels that we coach at. So that was probably the biggest thing for me, was having VT next to me that whole summer.
Yeah, the great Bristol. Love his commentary. Just on that, well, look, the next year, I guess there's 2 highlights. One was probably of you. I don't know if it is or not, but the great Gary Moorcroft mark.
I knew where you were going.
So I want you to run us through the step ladder, the mark of the century, plus the fact that you guys defeated Essendon It's the only time they should have gone undefeated for the whole season, and you pluck one out of the. I don't know where, but it was the last one-round game of the 2000 season. So just run us through those two particular games. And I didn't even realise you were the Gary Moorcroft runner until I did a bit of digging. So you run us through it.
Seriously, what a mark! Honestly, even I was there going, that was just unbelievable. But so what happened? Gary was on fire, and I got told by Terry Wallace to go and play on him, but play probably 5-10 metres in front of him. If you can get him out of the goal square and run him up the ground a little bit. He hasn't got much fitness, take him out of position. So standing about 5 metres in front, and Scotty Lucas gets the ball, and Scotty Lucas has never kicked on his right foot in his life. Just one moment. He kicks the ball on his right foot. I swear Luke Penny touched it, but we're not going to take that away from Gary on this moment. And it just sits up. And I actually thought at the time, I'm a chance to mark it. And then the next thing, I'm just doing a reverse EJ. I'm leaning forward, legs are in the air, and I hit the deck, and I stood up, and the whole of Etihad at the time was giving him a standing ovation. I'm thinking, what has just happened? It comes up on replay. But at the time, the one other thing I do remember is my teammate Ben Harrison was standing behind me, and he didn't jump over to spoil because he was too busy cheering the mark as it happened. So he couldn't believe it. He's gone up with Gary and the rest of the stadium in terms of cheering, an unbelievable grab. It really was. So, yeah, the good thing about it, I suppose, from my playing point of view, I never went to the back pocket ever again. That was the one and only time that I played in that position. So, in some ways, it was not embarrassing because it was a great grab by Gary, but ultimately it was it got me out of the back pocket forever, which was nice.
Yeah. What about
that? The other one, the 2000 game in 2000. Yeah. What a game, honestly. We set up for that. Terry Wallace set that up as Mission Possible. So he had the whole Mission Impossible theme for the week and all that sort of stuff, but changed it to Mission Possible. We went and trained at Werribee Footy Club all week and worked on that massive flood that we created during that game, just trying to restrict their scoring. So we worked on that flood. At quarter time, I remember Mark McCurry and Mastidi going to us, what are you boys up to today? This isn't meant to be going this way. And we knew we had them a little bit mentally in that facet. They're an unbelievable team, Essendon, in that period, 99, 2000. They were brilliant. And then we sort of got to three-quarter time. We're about 20 points down, and Terry Wallace called us all in at three-quarter time. He said, look, we're releasing now. Go and play. So that just gave us that freedom. So Essendon in that last quarter, maybe we're expecting us to continue to flood and just restrict the scoring. We were down. So we opened the whole thing up, and we got the ball into Granny's hands on the boundary line, left foot snap from the boundary, put us in front. And my best mate, Rowan Smith, no one actually remembers this, which is quite funny, but he kicked we actually won by 7 points, but everyone thinks we won by a point. He kicked the goal after the siren, which no one remembers. But he continues to tell us that he 100% sealed the deal. But it was one of those. It was just one of those games that goes down in history. Absolutely loved it.
Yeah. Look, just one more thing. We won't press through your whole career, but there was a bit of a point where 2000 did have a bit of a standing. I guess it slowed down the club from there and then because you didn't play finals again until you became captain. So you took on the captaincy as an acting captain when Luke Darcy went down with injury in 2006, and also the same year that you were rewarded with the All-Australian captain as well. You tasted finals during that period, and the club was, I guess it looked like the last chance you're going to have to potentially get a premiership in your career. Just run us through those years of your captaincy and having Big Bad Barry Hall down there at the Doggies and, getting Libber on board as well. What were those years like?
Yeah, it was great. Look, Rodney Eade took over as coach through that period, and that had a huge bearing. Yeah, we struggled from 2000 to 2006. Rodney Eade took over, got us pretty much into the finals in 06, and we got a really good taste of that. And he was unbelievable as a coach. I was an older player at the time, 28, maybe when Rocket turned up, and you sort of think you're at that level that you're just going to see your career out. But he was able to take us as players and the team to a level that we didn't even realise existed. He's tactically unbelievable from an individual point of view on your direct opponent, plus how to destroy and beat them, but also from a team point of view as well. So without doubt, Rocket's entrance to the club had a huge bearing on where we went as a group. I remember one of his first ever sessions, he grabbed us all in. He goes, okay, I want the AFL players to go stand over here. If you think you won, if you don't think you won, I want you to go stand over here. And there was 10 of us that went and stood as an AFL player, and the rest didn't. He goes, okay, there's our problem right there. So he over the next 2 years basically got that group of guys who were AFL players but didn't see themselves as consistent, strong performers in terms of what they could do week in, week out, because we were young at the time, had some unbelievable top-end draft picks that just probably didn't see themselves. But he grew them over the next 2 years. So, 2 years later, we had 35 guys standing on the AFL side that could have an impact for the footy club. So he was able to do things like that, which were just brilliant. In the end, he had, we were led by Adam Cooney and Daniel Johnson-Rakusa, Robert Murphy, Lindsay Gilby, Ryan Hargrave, Brian Lake, all these guys that had good careers at the club. They're the ones who took us forward, and us old blokes on the end were able to just enjoy the ride and be able to lead them and guide them so they could have pretty strong careers themselves. So Rocket took us to prelims in 08, 9 and 10. 08 was a good experience. 09, we probably should have won that game. We let ourselves down the last quarter against St Kilda. Nick Rewalt was unbelievable in that last quarter. In 2010, we were just sort of beaten up as a footy club. We struggled into a prelim. We had players that were, really sore and not feeling great, but that's just the nature of a long season, and that's the art of attrition, isn't it? And trying to get right through that grand final and win one. And St Kilda were too good for us on that night as well. So that's when it all finished up at the end of the 2010 prelim, but I had a great ride. I loved every minute. I think, I smiled my way through it because I just love the game and I love being a part of it. And, I love seeing guys finish up their footy that come out with a smile on their face, not disgruntled that, things haven't just gone to plan.
Yeah, right. So, it's an incredible career. I won't go back through all the stats, but the All Australians, the goal kicking award, the best, I think 3 best and fairest at the Doggies. Personally, what would be your high? And like you said, you walked away from the career very, very satisfied, and so you should be. What were your personal highlights? As maybe now when you look back.
Look, honestly, I've got one photo up at my house, and it's from my 300th game. But It was the aftermath when the whole team was sort of basically just jumping all over me. And that's what it was about, honestly, for me. Like, you start off when you're younger and you're trying to establish yourself and, the individual accolades that can come along the way. But ultimately, and we say it a lot, but the best part of footy is the 5 minutes post-siren when you win and you actually can be yourself before the coach calls you in and starts to readdress you for the following week. And being in the locker room is the best fun in footy because, that's when most of the guys are genuinely themselves, because once you walk out of that locker room, a coach is assessing you or some staff members looking at you, you're doing the right thing. You run out in the track, the media's there and people are watching and all that sort of stuff. So that locker room is the best part of you being close with your mates who you spend a lot of time with. And that's when we sort of, when we kind of, I suppose, had the most fun along the way. So the individual stuff was great, and it was reward for team effort, though. And I know that's a simple thing to say, and we hear that a lot, but without the side performing well in that year and our half-backers and mids being dominant to deliver the ball forward in an effective manner, you don't have an effect on the game. So without that, no question, playing as a forward, your reliance on the rest of the team is significant to get the ball into your area so you can go to work. And that's just the nature of the way it was for me as a player.
Okay, enough easy feel-good questions. What would
you
be
guys
your...
just teasing me, are you? You just
We haven't started.
Here we go.
No. It's not like that. What regrets, if any, or kind of lowlights, did you take out of your career? What were the toughest times? And is there anything you look back on now that could have gone another way if you had your time over?
I got hit by a golf cart in my last year, so I want to take that back. That was a low light.
I should have actually skipped that. Root is a Thailand Tigers player who actually studied in Victoria Uni, I think. And he's a massive Dogs tragic. And so he's thrown that question in there. Gatorade cart or Johnny Barnes? Who's the toughest opponent?
No, the golf cart. No doubt. No doubt. That was Barnesy was the thing after the Essendon game. Actually, I didn't mention that before. Probably the most embarrassing thing in my career. We had a big win, and here I am, probably the one and only time I took the individual aspect of it. I didn't like it. My treatment during that game, a couple of things happened I didn't like, and I went up to Barnesy afterwards and told him all about it. And we both went to the tribunal that week, but and both got a week each. But so there was that. But getting hit by the golf cart, seriously, like who put golf carts on a footy field? Who come up with that?
Yeah. Root's other comment was keep smiling, love you.
Oh, cut it out, Rudy. All right. One thing that Bill hasn't mentioned yet, which is on his script.
Oh, that's right.
Go to it, Bill.
I
won't steal your thunder.
Okay. So, the Bulldogs were kind of how to put it. I go from Melbourne, so I'm in a glass house. But one of those teams in the league where nobody hates the Bulldogs. But that's also because of the premiership drought, and there's no reason to hate a team that's not getting that ultimate success. And you went that close. What was it? 4 preliminaries and had that sort of years where you guys must have been feeling this is it, and the whole place is gonna, we're gonna tear this place down when we get there because of the even Teddy Whitten, all those sort of things at the footy club. To watch it in 2017, was that obviously there's joy, but was part of that difficult as well after all that you'd pushed for, and then to see the boys go and get that ultimate success?
Yeah, look, it was honestly amazing. It really was. For me, as a supporter of the club my whole life, I've been waiting, I waited, 40, not even, but at the time it was about 38 years or 39 years to see the flag myself. So, when I was playing my first year of footy, we won a Bulldogs reserves flag, and that was massive for me at the time, as you can imagine. That was the only flag I won in footy, and it was reserve grade, but still it was something that I cherished because it was in the red, white, and blue, and I loved it. But having those opportunities to make prelim finals and not making it, like we're up against unbelievable teams at the time. We were one of those teams, but we just couldn't beat a couple along the way. So that's just the nature of it. But I was honestly pumped for the footy club, because maybe if it had been in 2011, the year after I retired, it's a different. 6 years later, you sort of you calm down on yourself and all those sort of things, and you relax a little bit more. But that month of footy was unbelievable. It was the best month of footy I've seen by any team, and I'm not just being biased because they're the Bulldogs, but to lose in round 23 to Fremantle the way that they did over in Perth, then they had the week off and they got a few players back, which was the first time with the week off, and that helped, no question, because they got some stars back. Then they went to Perth and played West Coast in week 1 of the finals. Everyone thought, not going to win that. Get over the line in Perth, and what they learned from the game before in their style, they changed that for the West Coast game at Subiaco, which is a big ground. But they won the flag for me in the second quarter against the Hawks the following week, who were an unbelievable team, what they'd achieved themselves. The Dogs were about 20-odd points down halfway through the second quarter. The Bont got on fire, and they go in front at half-time. And they didn't look back from that point. So they beat the Hawks, go to Sydney and play the GWS Giants in
what a game.
Intense game of football I've ever been to. Like that was out of control. It was pretty much a Bulldogs home game. Everyone got on the bus, the train, the plane, the cars. They were sleeping in the cars, and they just wanted to get there. So, and it was huge. It was rocking red, white, and blue. It was amazing. When GWS rang out, the boo that went around the stadium was huge. Like, it seriously felt like a Bulldogs home game. And I sat with Mitch Hahn that night, and for 3 quarters we were like, calm, we'll be right. We're just sort of riding it. The last quarter we were a nervous wreck. We were like everyone in the stands. It was just crazy. So to be there for that was huge. And then the grand final against the Swans was obviously equally as intense. Went right down to the wire. Tom Boyd with that big goal after Dale Morris tackle. Shane Biggs with some of his efforts. We don't talk about Shane Biggs too much as a Bulldogs player, but what he did in that last quarter. He has one moment with 4 efforts that ends up in a goal to Picken or Stringer, I think it was. So it was just brilliant. It really was, to be a part of it all.
Yeah.
I voted for Norm Smith that day, and
Wow.
I'll never do it again. Like, honestly, that was just crazy pressure. Like, I'm trying to watch my team win a game, and I'm trying to work out who's been best on and who deserves the vote that day. So it had another layer of pressure added to it.
Do you have to submit those votes 5 minutes out or something like that?
Oh no, it was pretty much, because it was a close game. It was right on the end. So
were you in any state to coherently give an answer to them, or?
Yeah, no, because I knew I was doing it. I sort of had everything sort of going on throughout the day, and we have all the stats. I like to do it by eye as well, like not necessarily by who's at 30 or things like that. But Johannesson, I thought was the best. I gave Josh Kennedy from Sydney 2. I thought he was unbelievable. I gave Tom Boyd 1 for what he was able to produce on the given day. But Bont was unbelievable. Bont had 20 odd disposals at nearly 100% effective. So he didn't get too many votes. I don't think he got any votes to Bont, but could have easily taken 2 or 3 from people as well. But in the end, AJ won it, and it was well deserved.
Back in the day, they used to put in those votes at 3/4 time of the grand final, which is just phenomenal. Like, how can you do that when it's a close game? But
that's it.
I really love following the Bulldogs journey through that final series. I think it was the most exciting final series we've ever seen. And Tommy Boyd, well, you're paying $1 million a year, you get your money's worth right there.
Big time.
Huge. And God bless him, he's not with the game anymore, but he's done a lot for the game besides the least amount of games that he's played. Johno, we'll press on. Now, Bill gets to represent the Vietnam Swans. I represent the Japan Goannas, but not everyone gets to represent Australia. You played in several international rules series for Australia. Bill, just mute your button, mate. All those Vietnamese to quieten down. Johno, you had the opportunity to play in international rules. What's it like playing in the cauldron in Ireland? I'd love to go and see it and get amongst it. But what was that experience like representing your country of Australia?
You'd absolutely love it going over to Croke Park. What a venue. It really is. It's unbelievable. Centre of Dublin. And it was amazing because I represented when I was young in 98 was my first tour. So I was, really young. Myself and Nathan Eagleton were the 2 youngest on the tour at the time. And you got guys, Steve Silvani, Robert Harvey, and, I roomed with Mark Rasciuto the first trip. And when the Roo took his top off, he was a massive unit. He had this huge tat on his back, and I'm like, what? And he's like, Johno, we're going to the gym. I'm like, yes, Mr. Rasciuto, we're going to the gym. He was intimidating, but an absolute ripper. And what Adelaide did to us in 98 as well. So we're walking around going, these Adelaide Crows boys, I don't know how we're going to get along with them. We actually ended up being pretty close. Probably closest with the Adelaide boys. But I got out of that. I became really close with Boomer Harvey. So these sort of trips is what established some of my great mates outside of the game at other clubs. So without doubt that. But learning from the best in the business, Craig Bradley's running around, Shane Crawford's running around. You're playing with these guys that are, just absolute superstars. And all of a sudden, you're learning from them. So to do that in 98 and 2000 was brilliant, to play over in Ireland. Then I played back in Australia. I think it was about 2004, something like that, 2003 maybe. And that was a great experience to play on home soil and over in Perth, which was huge, and back at the MCG.
Yeah, it's huge. Now let's go on to your career. You've had a fair bit of durability. I tried to become a professional footballer myself back in the day at the Woodville West Torrens Eagles, but I sustained ruptured testicles, torn retinas in my eye, all these weird injuries that stopped me from fulfilling my potential. I had to go to Japan to go and do that, but that's another story for another day. Your career, an amazing career of durability. Besides your first year as a rookie and after getting wound up by the golf cart in your final year, you managed 21 plus games per season, which is just phenomenal. How did you get through it? And the mindset of a model of consistency as well. How did you approach your footy to get the best out of yourself?
Oh, look, I was lucky. Like, honestly, like we know I had a number of teammates that, did 2 or 3 knees in a row or would be out with some strange injuries along the way. And just wouldn't get a lucky break. And they were very good players and could have made it and played a lot of footy. But I just had a lot of luck, no doubt. Yeah, I looked after myself really well. Like I made sure that I, recovered really well and did all those things, got a lot of physio and treatment and bits and pieces. But it's not as if I didn't go through years where I wasn't sore and I wasn't battling, injuries, but they weren't injuries that kept me out of the game. They were just injuries that were uncomfortable, that might need an injection to play, and then you might be able to lift your arm for a few days post-game, and then you slowly get going again, inject it again, and off you go. And I only ever had 2 operations. I was lucky. I had my knee in my first year, which was just a clean-out from junior days, and then had my bicep tendon, which had a partial tear, and it reattached, towards probably the middle part of my career. Other than that, I was sort of lucky in that sense. I still injured myself and hurt ligaments and all those things, but they weren't bad enough to make me miss footy. And so yeah, no doubt, I had a lot of luck, a lot of timing with some of those injuries in the pre-season, where I had time to sort of have 4 or 5 weeks off and rest them up rather than during a season and miss games. So I did miss periods of footy in the pre-seasons, but never during the year, which was always sort of lucky, but also a bit of good management as well, I suppose.
Yeah, the footy gods definitely shined upon you.
Yeah,
You've been a smiling assassin yourself. Look, we won't get into Zena Sports just yet, but let's just touch on your post-footy career. You were working down at Geelong there for a little while in their footy department. You've been a mainstay with Fox Footy, unlike our 7 boundary rider Rick Ollerinshaw. So what's the secret? What have you been up to over these years since you've finished up your career?
Yeah, I've been pretty lucky in that sense. Like I always had an interest in the media, and I worked for about 5 or 6 years prior to retiring in the media. So it was a transition that I was always keen on pursuing. And I jumped in with Fox Footy in 2011 and have been there since. They're a great place to work, great bunch of guys, that we work with on a daily basis. The whole organisation at all levels is really, really cool, and they look after everyone really well. So we're lucky in that sense that we're a pretty good team. So that's been great. I've worked with the AFL with their academies for about the last 8 years as well, which has been great. Being able to travel and work with some of the best juniors around the country and try and give them a bit of a guiding light into what they could expect if they do get drafted. So that's been a lot of fun. And since moving to Geelong, I did some work with the men's program for 3 years. I've been involved with the AFLW team the last 2 years, and that's been great fun. I go down once a week only, and I do some goal kicking, have some fun, and hopefully bring some energy to the session. And it's not a bad role, is it, when you walk in and your main role is to try and get everyone up and about. It's not the hardest thing in the world to do. So, and that's been great fun. The girls have been great to coach. I've actually loved that the most out of all the coaching that I've done so far. And just the fact that they're just open to learn absolutely everything and to give a little bit of that off has been good fun.
Looks like Bill's putting out a spot fire there. What's going on there, Bill?
Yeah, just putting out some spot fires. We've got a ripping question from one of my teammates, actually, another Swannies player, but actually from up in Hanoi. And he's saying a bit of a left field memory, but he's saying Jason Tutt, going mental against Port. Toddy's a big Port fan, and kicking 6, he thinks, from the midfield. Are there any other games that you played or witnessed at AFL level where someone just went absolutely above and beyond out of the blue?
Oh, that's a good pickup by Todd. Well, I think Jason Tutt kicked 4 goals with his first 4 kicks in AFL footy. It was an unbelievable start from Jason Tutt. So we thought we were on to something big then. That was what a debut. You know what I mean? Imagine doing that on debut, where the sky's the limit, sort of stuff. Anyone else from memory, not as big as that on debut. We played North Melbourne once. I remember Drew Petrie kicked 7 goals in a quarter against us, which was unbelievable. I think that was in Glenn Archer's 300th game or something, and he just went nuts at the MCG and kicked 7 in a quarter. Outside of that, from an individual point of view at the Bulldogs, nothing really sort of stands out from that sort of standard where, a day game where guys kick that. That's a lot of standout players, but that probably takes the cake in terms of the number one. What a start to your career.
Yep. And we might as well, like I actually mentioned before, but one of your key attributes was being able to punch a bit above your weight, so to speak. Now Yoshi also lives in Osaka with Matty, and plays out of the forward pocket. And he'd like to know. His claim to fame is actually kicking a goal on Brian Lake, which that was the highlight of probably Brian Lake's trip to Osaka. Now, so what? Any tips you would give Yoshi or a small forward when you are playing a bit outsized?
Oh, look, you've got to assess your opponent, Yoshi, straight up. I think that's the number one thing. Like for me, look, I'm not much taller than Yoshi. Like I'm about 5'11". And I played on some guys that were big. But when I got the bigger opponent, I just had license to get up the ground, run them around, take them to contest, take them to the stoppage. They had no idea in stoppage, the big guys. So you just roll them around the back of that and pop out the other side. So, and then when I got guys that were smaller than me, I was able to take them to the goal square. Look, I did a truckload of work on my marking. That was the number one thing for me as a small guy, that if I was able to play on these guys, especially my height or smaller, I sort of knew I could try and work on that advantage in the air against them. And then when you had the bigger guys, you weren't going to beat them in the air, so you had to do it on the ground. So I trained my whole career as a forward, but I trained as a midfielder. I did everything with the midfield in those aspects. And I also trained on the best defenders we had in our team. So I did all my sessions on Lakey, a lot of them on Lakey, to be honest, because you one-on-one, unbelievable player. Unbelievable. And Dale Morris was the other one that you just couldn't get a kick at training. So I knew every week, because I'm training on these guys, and I might get a kick at training, but come game day, there was none really better in my mind than those two that I train on week in, week out. So I knew if I got an opponent, I knew that he wasn't as determined as Dale to make that contest, or wasn't as good in the air as Lakey. So you're sort of going with that confidence that you've got against your direct opponent, knowing the work you've done during the week.
By finishing in 2010, you made it into 3 decades, and I guess now, with your level of involvement with the sport, you're into a 4th. What have you seen as the big changes from your start in the VFL AFL system to where it is today?
Early on, it was more around the training and the types of training we ended up doing, rather than just circle work and 3-man weave up and down the ground. It sort of evolved from that. We used to mix it up in the early days and do circle work one way, and he'd change it up and would go back the other way. That was the extent of training with big groups. So the evolution of training, no doubt. The pre-game warm-up on the ground was something that Terry Wallace introduced. So we used to just warm up in the rooms, the little sort of rooms, and he brought it out after a trip to America that, all other sports in the world were warming up on the ground. Why don't we have access to the ground? So they were the main aspects during that time. And where the game's at, it's gone from a one-on-one game, one-on-one battles to team-based defensive footy now. It's a lot more difficult to play. It's a lot more strategic, the game now. The clubs do, which frustrates me a lot, but teams do play a lot along the boundary. They kick inside 50 now wide, so it goes out of play, so they can press up their defenders to block it in and control the ground and those sort of things. So I know the AFL are doing what they can to try and get back to some more one-on-one footy or some more free-flowing scoring, because that's what we love. We want to see that as fans of the game, no doubt. We want to see the best players in the competition not step out of stoppage and have to get through 5 defenders to work, or 5 opponents to work their way through. We don't get to see the best of our very best. And I know we do on the odd occasion, like Dusty in the grand final and things like that. But so often we see, them restricted with their movement. So that for me has been a huge shift in where the game is at the moment, and trying different things to get it back on track to what it was, I suppose, through that period of the 90s and 2000s, which I'm lucky in a sense that I was involved in the game during that period, because it'd be a lot harder now.
Yep. And coming a bit closer to home from our end, what sort of awareness do you have of footy being played overseas? from looking out from Australia, and in your thinking, what needs to happen or what could happen to help that progress to further levels?
Oh, look, I've had a big awareness of it, I suppose, being involved in a few international cups in Melbourne and those sort of things, and seeing how much and how loved the game is around the world, not only by the expats but by so many others as well now, which I think is huge. And still keeping up to speed now with what we're doing with the growth in numbers and the participation rates, which are getting bigger and bigger each year. And you guys can talk specifically in around all that and where it all sits. But and then I suppose I went to the Shanghai game in 2019, which was great, and that sort of opened my eyes up again as to where football sits around the world. I went to the States with the AFL Academy for 6 years in a row, and seeing the development of the game in America was quite impressive. So certainly got a feel for it all. I think the participation rates with how we assume they're growing, and we see the numbers that they are. I think that's something that strength in numbers will start to break down more and more barriers as we go along. I think that the skill level and the talent and the commitment that is being put in by so many, not just on a playing level, but also through administration and running these games and organisations and in the various regions around the world is getting bigger and stronger as well. And I think the push is getting bigger because I'm reasonably close with the AFL New Zealand guys as well, just being across the ocean, and they're pushing as hard as what you guys are in terms of pumping up the game around Asia, what they're trying to do in New Zealand. I think collectively we could all learn from each other, and we should tap into each other a little bit more in terms of outside of our own particular region, because they could be doing something that will suit what you're doing, or you may be able to introduce into what you're doing. Same with Europe, same with the US and Canada, and what's happening over there in Ireland. So there's some regions around that and including yourselves, that are trying, and working extremely hard to continue to promote the game and try different aspects of the game as well, rather than just being footy and nines and other different things that can be introduced. So I think everyone's extremely on the right track, and it's just a continual work to keep pushing the game in the regions. And let's tap into, and that's why I'm rapt to be involved, because I think that's the other aspect of it. Let's tap into more and more ex-players, current players that can give it their time, and would love to, because majority are actually interested in where footy is around the world and how they can help educate or just like we have done today, have a chat about life on the road and life in the game. It's a great game. We all love it, and it's always good to talk about it. So tapping into those sort of guys, I think, will continue to add interest into what you're doing over there in Asia.
Yeah. All right, let's tap into the serious stuff now, Johno. Just tilt your head a little bit, please. So he's got his Zena Sport hat on, ladies and gentlemen, and it gives us a great thrill today to announce that Johno is going to come on board as an official AFL Asia ambassador of our game. It was our first ever, and it comes about as a partnership that we've developed over recent times with Zena Sport. Johno, I know it's probably not one of your biggest accolades when you're a 6-time All-Australian, captain of the All-Australian, but you're the first ever that we've been able to get on board. But more importantly, let's talk about Zena Sport and what you guys do and how you want to get involved with AFL Asia.
Yeah, look, it has been actually the most challenging but rewarding aspect of retirement, no doubt. It's my wife Donna. It's her little setup. She started it. It's basically a protective vest for any female playing any type of contact sport. We focus on footy because it's what we love the most, but there's so many other sports around the world that have tapped into our vest because of just the way they play, whether it's football or whether it's a bit of gridiron stuff or lacrosse or softball or baseball, whatever, roller derby. We've had some amazing sports that have reached out to us in terms of what we're doing, but it is a vest that has breast and rib protection. It's specifically designed. It's really lightweight, only weighs 160 grams. So in some of the trying conditions that you might get across Asia, it'll still sit comfortably on the players, no doubt. And it's just something that we saw back in the day. We had a young girl that was playing the game, and the game we're at came off with a breast injury, and we just thought, is there anything out there to assist the girl and the player at the time? And there wasn't too much, so we went away and did our research and started the design phase, and we've worked for we've been going 4 years. We launched the start of last year and COVID hit, so no sport, but it's still been good to focus on, the progression of females playing footy and females playing sport around the world. And I have a real interest in sport as a whole. And so our vest is something that it's been great to get to this point. We've got 60 AFLW girls wearing it this season so far, and those numbers continue to grow each week. We've got some of the very best players in the competition, and the girls are wearing it for a number of reasons. Some have had some lumps removed, some are coming back, returning mums, some are young in the game and just want to be able to protect themselves. So it really is a various number of reasons why girls are wearing the vest, and it's been great fun to introduce it to so many, because everyone's at a different level and different levels of confidence, and it's been great. So it's been great to partner with AFL Asia as well to spread the word, and hopefully if the girls do decide to get a vest, that it may help with their confidence, may assist where they're at in life in terms of returning to sport. They may have other aspects and other reasons why they want to wear it, but ultimately we're finding that it's been really positive. It's been great. It's been something different that the girls haven't really thought about too much, that we're finding here in Australia, and it's great now to introduce it to other parts of the world, because we really feel it can have a positive impact on the way you play your footy.
Yeah.
Or you go, Bill.
Sorry. It is actually, I think you're going to find that you're really, really onto something in the more sort of developing markets, because the thing we find with Vietnamese, even males, but especially females, is there's no contact sport that is played across all of Asia. Everybody watches soccer. They watch Ronaldo dive in the World Cup. They think that's acceptable in a sporting contest. And when we first bring them down, they're so excited to have this new sport. And, like we say, the sport is so incredible, but they just get this deer in the headlight moment when they're like, what? Someone's actually going to try and floor me. It's terrifying for them. And to get that bit of confidence, I think is going to be an incredible thing. The Vietnamese girls, we've had a team for about 4 years now, and we had a few training with us before that. But to add that layer of protection and support, it's just going to be great for us here, and I assume across this whole region. So it's really welcomed from the club level to be partnering with Zena. We can't wait.
And that's what we're finding as well. And it's a really good point you make, because there's all different levels. But if you can add to that confidence to step out there, knowing that this vest won't move on you, and it's not really, you can't really see it under your jumper because it's really thin and lightweight instead. So you've got a layer on that can absorb a lot of contact, yet you can just go about playing the game and enjoying it, knowing that you just got that layer underneath you. And it comes down to all different things, like you said, absorbing the tackles, making the tackle yourself, all elements of the game, having a mark taking over you, taking the mark, and maybe someone trying to spoil you and knocking you in the ribs, or whether it's just simply taking a chest mark. You know what I mean? We're finding a lot of girls, in particular in Australia, a lot of the junior girls that are starting out in the game, that ball can come in quite solid on you. So just taking that mark and having the confidence that you've got a layer of padding there that can assist with those aspects of the game. So there's so many reasons why you might choose to wear it, and many you mentioned before, and that's what we're about. We're trying to keep participation in the game, keep the girls in the game, and because we've always said we've only seen 50% of the talent. Now we're seeing 100% of the talent out there, and it's really good in our game. And we want the girls to be able to play and play well. But then, like you speak about durability, get out there the next week, recover well and go again and go again, and hopefully our best will be able to assist in those sort of things happening as well.
No, that's sensational. We're really delighted to have you guys on board. Now it's time for another one of our sponsors, Tribal Sport. It's our apparel provider. David Lake, the Gold Coast Suns AFLW head coach, is the man behind the scenes there at Tribal Sport for all your Tribal Sport needs for any apparel. Bill's got another spot fire to put out there. Let's put that out, Bill. We're going to put the spot fires out now, Bill, because we're hitting the friendly fire round. Johno, we want to make these answers as quick as we can. We're conscious of time as well, and I've got a few things that I need to get done pretty shortly as well. Now, Johno, what's your nicknames?
Oh, Johno. I used to get, as a young fellow, I got called Buffer. And Ronnie was probably my main nickname at the Bulldogs. There was a soccer player, Ronnie Johnson. So Nathan Brown loved his soccer, and it started Ronnie. And Ronnie was one that sort of stuck around for quite a while.
They also the media-driven smiling assassin.
Yes, yeah, Rex Hunt. Yeah, Rex Hunt started that one back in the day.
Yeah, I heard you once had a motorbike and you had to get a grill put on it because you kept on getting bugs stuck in your teeth because you smiled all the time. Is that right?
People say I power the MCG as well, but anyway, that's a story for another day.
All right, we'll go straight to your preferred position on the field. Where did you like playing the most? High, half forward?
Half forward was my favourite position. Loved it because you had that flexibility to sort of try and get up the ground a bit and then float back near the big sticks, which was always a lot of fun.
All right. Who were the best players that you ever played with or against?
With was Granny, Smitty, Scotty West was unbelievable as a midfielder. Lindsay Gill, Robert Murphy was phenomenal as a player. So Daniel Jan Syracuse, they're probably Daniel Cross was a gun, absolute gun, sort of underrated in the way that he about his footy and his preparation was unbelievable. Fittest guy I've ever seen in the game by a long way. Nathan Buckley, like in my early days, I was a bit of a tagger when I first jumped into the Bulldogs. So I played on Crawford and Craig Bradley, Johnny Platten, Peter Matera. West Coast was humble. What a player. Like, he was unbelievable. Yeah. So, yeah, I was able to play on some of the very best as a young player and got taught some footy lessons. Robert Harvey taught me a couple of times. You know, he used to go down to the haunches, pretend he was tired, and then run another 5K after that. So, you know, they were just some unbelievable players. Matty Lloyd was probably my favourite opposition player, though. He was a superstar.
And who were your best teammates? I guess we've already touched on the skill level, but as an actual teammate.
Oh, look, Rowan Smith was unbelievable because he would gravitate to the young fellas that from the West. So he grew up in Yarraville himself, so he made sure that he looked after the guys that would walk through that came out of the western suburbs. So he was from day one. Honestly, he was the one that put his arm around me, and we just, you know, obviously when I went from my first year to number 6 in my second year, and my locker was next to him. So no doubt he was we had a pretty good time together, myself and Smitty.
Now let's flip the coin here. Who's your most annoying teammate?
Lindsay Gilby Daniel Jan Syracuse was a pest, no doubt. In a good way though. He'd always enjoy a bit of fun. Lindsay Gilby was a prankster. Chris Grant was pretty good on the pranks as well. He wasn't bad at, you know, wrapping the glad wrap around the bag. Or we used to get these massive bags when at the start of each pre-season, and Granny would cut the handles off them. So we'd only get one bag a year at the Bulldogs, and if you didn't have handles, you couldn't carry it out. You had to carry it like a big cradle for the entire year. So he was good at that. He was good at gluing your thongs on top of your locker. After training, you'd go to get your thongs, and they wouldn't come off. So we always had a bit of fun.
And your most difficult opponents?
Oh, look, Cam Bruce, who used to play at Melbourne a fair bit. I used to play on Cam a lot. He was difficult to play on. But look, if I was ever beaten by a direct opponent, I'd do everything in my power, because coaches are like that. You know, if a player beats you, the next time you play him, he's going to send the same player to you. Yeah. And I always made sure it didn't happen twice. That was something that I made sure, didn't happen too often.
Now, moving away from footy for a minute, what's your favourite meal?
Favourite meal? It used to be spaghetti bolognese and lasagna, but I haven't eaten too much in the last 8 years. I ate that much of it as a player. That's the thing that I haven't eaten. I love slow cooked lamb. That's my favourite. Yeah, that is my favourite, no doubt. Nice and easy. Chuck it on in the morning and just pull it apart at night. That's brilliant.
And what's your favourite holiday destination?
Noosa. Love it. Favourite part of the world. It's close to home, but it's my favourite beach. I just absolutely love it. It's got a little wave at times. It's calm most of the time. The water temp's just beautiful. You can spend the whole day in there. So I just absolutely love Noosa.
All right, you got an opportunity to invite 4 people to a dinner for a slow cooked lamb.
Yeah.
Who are you going to invite?
I'm going to invite my idol. Trevor Hendy was one of my idols growing up. I'd love to have a meal with him. Usain Bolt, absolutely love him, and Carl Lewis would be the other couple that I'd definitely have at a meal for sure.
All right, you spoke earlier about your favourite holiday destination being Noosa, but where's your best footy trip been? The boys don't get to celebrate
Hong
much
Kong. We had a couple of good trips in Hong Kong. Absolutely loved them. We didn't get in trouble for one, but my last one, there was a bit of a video that might have come out with the boys in one of the streets there having a bit of fun. But outside of that, we actually one year in Hong Kong, Daniel Cross and Tom Williams jumped into the Hong Kong harbour and saved a girl, when we're going out.
Wow.
So things like that I think they got bravery awards and all that sort of stuff on the back of that. That was one of the most amazing things I've ever seen, of 2 guys not hesitate and jump in to save a girl. Like unbelievable, really was, into a harbour that was, pretty rough at the time. But Hong Kong was an amazing place. The races was brilliant. The nightlife was great. The junk boats were fun. All that sort of thing was brilliant. During the day, we had, plenty to do as well. So absolutely loved Hong Kong. Yeah, we went there a couple of times. Then Queenstown in New Zealand is another great spot where you just have a bit of fun. Plenty of pubs, plenty of things to do during the day, and at night as well.
Wonderful place.
Yeah. Now you've lived in a bit of spotlight as a Melbourne-based AFL footballer and been in the media ever since. And we've now tried to grill you for 1 hour. But what would be 3 things that people don't already know about you?
I don't have.
We asked this at the end.
One thing, I'm probably the only one around the world that doesn't really have. I've got LinkedIn. I think that's about it. Although Zena's got social, so jump on Zena Sport _co and get on Instagram and jump on that. But a couple other things people don't know. My daughter's a singer. Loves her singing, which is good. She's released her latest song last week. So Ella J is her name, and she's got 3 singles out there now. So make sure you jump on, check out Ella J. That's something people mightn't know too much about. And I want to pump up my son because he races go-karts. So he's not involved in footy at all. He loves motorsport, loves the F1. That's his passion. I think at times people think that, we're going to be a footy-based family. We're not. I love it. I drive it at home. My kids love the dogs, but they've got their own passion. And so singing and motorsport are the 2 things in our life that probably dominate us more than anything else. If anyone's got any want to sponsor us for some tyres or something, because the go-karting's it's not the cheapest sport in the world. So if anyone wants to help me out at any stage, that'd be greatly appreciated.
And what rule changes would you implement if you could to AFL? You mentioned before, scoring is obviously a priority. Have you got any ideas in that space?
Oh, look, this new man on the mark wall, I don't know how it's going to work. I don't think clubs will man the mark. Why man the mark if you could told to stand still? If a player takes the mark in front of you, just move back and you can go where you like as long as you're 5 metres from where the mark was meant to be. So as long as they move before the umpire calls stand, I think they're going to call her. I don't know how that's going to work too well. It'll be interesting to see. I know a lot of the clubs are working on not manning the mark, so that'll be an interesting one to watch in the early part of the year. Look, for me, I don't want to bring it in, but it looks like it's the only rule that would work is last touch in between the arcs, honestly. I know we see it in the AFLW, and last year, because of COVID, we had balls all around the ground. So if the ball went out of play on the full of play, you could just grab the ball and get going. And I think that's the best way of opening up the game is between the arcs. If it's last touch, a player picks up a ball that's just there on the boundary line and we're away. You're able to then not, slow the game down. It's continually moving. It might just lengthen the ground a little bit in terms of our position. So therefore, because last year we started to see some of the key forwards come back into the game, which I thought was good. The King twins are really good in that space. Charlie Dixon with what he was able to do as well as Tom Lynch and Tommy Hawkins. So we're starting to see the big power forward come back, and that's what we want to. Because if the power forward's set, then the smalls can go to work at his feet, or spin around him a little bit. Midfielders are getting more space to go to work. So I think something like that would probably be the best rule out of all the ones that we've tried to introduce. That the one, and I might be wrong, but in my mind, it's just where it sits in terms of getting some better play through the mid part of the ground.
Yeah. Just on that new rule of standing the mark, I've heard people on SEN talking about it. Some of the coaches have had a bit of feedback that someone will stand, 10 metres away from where the kicker is just to cut off the 45 kick, because that's where it's probably going to be used the most.
Right.
And the SANFL have successfully used that last touch out of bounds rule for probably 4 or 5 years now.
Yep.
And it's their scoring is what it was, what the AFL was back at its peak. So we're seeing some really good scoring coming out of SA, and that's a good model to look at as well. Johno, we're going to do, this is the first of many things today. We got our first AFL Asia ambassador. Our catch slogan, if you haven't seen it, is "How good's footy in Asia?" So I want you to, I'll lead the front here. I'll lead us off. How good's footy in Asia? I want you to give us your best. Sorry, the librarians here in the local 110 junior high school. Just scared them, got them jumping off their seats. But can you give us one to finish up the podcast today, please?
Yeah, sure can. All right, let's have a go at this. All right. How good's footy in Asia?
Perfect. All right, we've nailed it. You ticked so many boxes for us today. You've got many money moments out of you, and we really look forward to utilising your services. But more important, we look forward to our female footballers jumping on board with Zena Sport and getting that new garment on board and really seeing the success of that, and getting a lot of Asian-born footballers on board as well. I think that's something that is really important, because we hear of that scared factor, and we can actually nullify it and get them on the front foot. So thank you so much for joining us today. Bill, you're actually in the votes today. We'll give Johno the 3. I might nab the 2 and you can have the 1. But Johno, you've been an outstanding guest today. Really thank you for your time, and look forward to catching up with you again soon, no matter where it is, whether it's on a podcast or just a bit of a plug for Zena Sport, or having you out at Asian Champs and unveiling you as our ambassador at ground level as well. So thank you very much for joining us.
Honestly, it's been amazing. It really has. I know we've gone, an hour and 12 minutes now. Looking at the time, it's flown by. I haven't even checked that. It's been great fun. I've loved it. Great interview, you guys. I think there's a bit of a future here with what you do. Maybe that's the next step in AFL Asia. Is let's broaden their horizons in terms of some high level commentary. I think you guys would be able to absolutely nail it.
Yeah, I did 26 games back in 2012 before I moved to Japan, and I've got the Rexy Hunts. I've got all the names going. So
love it.
Hence why I give Billy Bang Bang Krang out every now and then. All right, this has been
good fun.
The Big G, Billy Bang Bang Krang and Johno, Western Bulldogs legend. Thanks everyone for joining us for episode 18. We'll catch up with you again soon, and bye for now.